Okay, good evening. Is the mic on? Yes. Can all hear me in the back? Well, it's my honor to be invited by Jane to be the kickoff speaker in the series, the VMA CEO Leadership Series. And I was joking with a few colleagues in the room today that it's actually not too late to get a refund. So what I'm going to do, the theme of my presentation this evening, it was kind of fun to put this together, 30 years of working around the world, to put this together into 30 slides. But I think the theme of my presentation this evening is really creating a culture. And that's what we've been able to do here in Daytona and Teledyne. And the other theme, and you're going to see a lot about this, is innovating and innovation and winning. That's what we're all about. That's what I'm about. And so if you would watch this through with me, and we'll take any questions at the end. So leadership, from my perspective, as I said, is really about innovating and being different and being able to compete. One of my great attributes is to motivate people. And you're going to see a number of slides through the evening how we motivate people to take risk, to take calculated risk. If you don't take risk, you're not going to advance, you're not going to be number one. And we communicate all the time, every single day, to every one of my employees, the same message that will come out. Focus and live in the market and live with your customer. You've got to have an effective business strategy, a business strategy process. You've got to be in for the long term. And at the end of the day, you're only measured by one thing. And we're going to share a little bit about that. So this was fun for me. My mother dropped me off at a British boarding school called Clifton College. She forgot to tell me it's for boarding only, and I arrived there at the age of 8. It's in Bristol in the UK, and it's full of international kids. And if I look back, that's where I first got to meet the kids from Malaysia and Hong Kong and Thailand. I was kind of intrigued by that. I stayed there for 10 years, and I graduated onto the city of Birmingham, Aston University. And there I did my first intern with the company Raychem. And then I was very privileged when I was working in Belgium to be sent to the business school in Paris, INSEAD, and then one of your more famous schools over here in Boston, the Harvard Business School. So I've had an interesting educational background. A couple of notes, there's two very famous people that went to school a couple of years ahead of me. One of them was a Monty Python, John Cleese. And the other is Kate Middleton's father, was actually in the same house. So he's the grandfather of the future King of England. So this was fun too. It turns out after 30 years of business, I've been able to do business in 30 countries, and that represents at least 30 cultures. That was fun for us to count that up, but you can see from Rio de Janeiro to the Great Wall of China, to my Australian friend in the room, to the USA. I've been very privileged to travel the world and learn about the different cultures, and that we bring that cultural effect back to our company so our people learn how to do business around the world. It's also interesting that I've spent my entire life either sealing moisture out of the aerial telephone plant, the underground telephone plant, and now the deep ocean. That's all I've done in 30 years. I hadn't quite worked that out. But that's what I've done. I've developed products. I've innovated. We find solutions to literally keep the moisture out of the cable television plant, the underground telephone plant. And as you all know today, what we do is keep the moisture and keep the power and the optical signal flowing through the oil field. So I started in the company called Raychem. If you don't know who they are, they're now called Tyco Electronics. And I was not only an intern, but I was a polymer chemist in the UK. I had an opportunity to move to Belgium. That was my first international assignment. And we both, my wife and I, moved there for 4 years. And on a rainy day in Belgium, my boss said to me, "How would you like an assignment in San Francisco?" And we said yes, and we moved to San Francisco, product development. Moved on to North Carolina for 7 years. And did a sales management assignment in Colorado. So it's pretty interesting, right? So West Coast, East Coast, the Rockies, where else could you come but Florida? So 13 years ago, I walked into this airport, and I was going to come to Daytona Beach for a couple of years. And at one point it seemed like it was only being a couple of months as we were running out of money so quickly. But we were able to turn the business around, and you're going to see a couple of things about that. And then we sold the business to Teledyne, and 4.5 years ago we decided to rename and rebrand 6 companies and call it Teledyne Oil and Gas. So that's the brief education. You can see the international theme building, and that's really what sort of makes us different and kind of makes me different from many executives around the world. And this is an interesting view. This is what I do. This is what we challenge the organization to do, is to innovate. We solve challenging industry problems. If it's a simple problem, then my competitor can go and do it. If it's a tough problem, we want to be the ones to get that winning position. We inspire risk-taking. It's okay to take risk. It's okay to fail, move on, take another risk. And so we have installed very strong processes to, this is a roadmap. You can see the road disappearing. We always are constantly thinking, where do we want to go? Where do we want to be in 3 years, in 5 years? And how do we get there? We spend a lot of time thinking about this, and it's always linked to our business strategy. So you've got to have a strong business strategy. Here's our roadmaps. These are going to be our new products that we invest in. So this is also interesting. Tom asked me to consider, who are my mentors and leaders. And the first gentleman, he's going to be 90 years old in May. He is the founder of the Raychem Corporation. He is an innovator, and he developed technology, and we took that technology and sold it in 80 different countries in the world. That clearly inspired me 30 years ago to follow maybe in his footsteps. And the second gentleman is Jack Moore, a personal friend. He's the chairman of Cameron. Cameron is $11 billion in Houston. And what I most admire about Jack Moore is that it was his blowout preventer stack that failed in the Macondo oil spill. And everybody watched the oil spilling into the Gulf of Mexico. I knew one man that could lead Cameron through that very trying period, because actually it wasn't a problem with his equipment. And so I admire him for his communication skills. Some of you met our CEO, Dr. Robert Mehrabian, a brilliant scientist who turned science into a $2.5 billion corporation called Teledyne Technologies. He's definitely one of my mentors. So you're going to think that I'm just going to keep putting up all these business leaders. You're wrong. So for 35 years, I've been inspired by Bono and U2, not only their music, but what he stands for. He uses music to develop a message to take around the world, sometimes too political, but he's a powerful individual. I'll travel a long way to watch Bono and U2. And then I have to have my first passionate sport. You probably have heard. You have a sporting activity this weekend? That's right, the Broncos are going to win. That's right, I lived in Denver. Mr. Alex Ferguson. I don't actually like his team, and you'll see why in a moment. But he spent 26 years at Manchester, and he won every trophy more than 3 or 4 times. But it was his leadership skills. If Manchester United were losing with 3 or 4 minutes to go, you could guarantee he'd probably be able to turn that around from the touchline. That's how successful he was in motivating people. And I think of him, when I'm in a tough meeting with my Australian friend who's in the room, I think of this guy. So what do? We're winners. If you're going to be in business, or you're going to be in sports, you're really only there to win. You're there to be number one. Number two really doesn't make the trophy stand. So what do? We set stretch objectives. We drive behavior. We have a winning attitude, and absolutely celebrate success. Whether it's a project, a delivery, a milestone, we're really, really good getting on the Teledyne bus and celebrating success. That's very, very important to do. I see some people nodding in the room. Okay, communication. I basically spend every single day of my working and weekends, according to my wife, talking to my employees. I've just finished the world tour, and I think I've got in front of 1,000 of the 1,200 employees. Here's my team in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. That's a long way for us to go, but we feel it's very important that every single employee has the same message, so they can translate that to their workforce, their teammates, and to the customer. So we're constantly, I was trying to give Mr. Rick Scott a few tips on his new campaign here. Some of you were at the grand opening with Mr. Rick Scott. It was a wonderful day. So one of my greatest strengths, I believe, is communicating and telling the message so that people can replicate that message. So what do? Every new hire that comes into our building has to have lunch with me. That's been a lot of lunches over the last couple of years. And so we have a regular new hire lunch. They see basically this presentation about who we are and where we're going. And we have a meeting every single quarter. So for the last 13 years times 4, that's a lot of quarterly meetings. Let me tell you, the first 3 years, we could not find an order. That was the problem in Daytona Beach for us. It's changed a little bit recently, but we communicate the strong message, the truthful message. We take questions and answers. If you're not doing that with your employees, I'd really encourage you to do that. This is what I spend most of my time doing. You'll see where I go in the world. Where do we go with our customers? We go to the highest point. We try and meet the leaders. We try and meet the CEOs. We encourage our organization to listen. They weren't actually very good at listening when I arrived. They would tell the customer what he really wanted to hear. But it turns out listening to customers is the most powerful thing you could do. If you can actually then partner with them, they treat you as one of themselves. Of course, we want to go global. We're not going to stay here in Daytona Beach. We have great customers in the Gulf of Mexico, but you're going to see the global opportunity for you and your businesses. These are some of our customers. You may have heard of one or two of them. And we spend a lot of time going to visit them, but most importantly, you'll see later on, attracting them here to Daytona Beach into Volusia County. That's the most important thing. So my primary passion is a football team in Birmingham. You'll recognize the color coordination tonight. My son bought me this tie for Christmas. This is Aston Villa. They're 150 years old. They don't have quite as much money as Chelsea and Manchester United, but they play good, and I watch every game. And I had a season ticket when I was in Birmingham, and I played with their youth team, and I will watch every game, and my assistant Cindy knows when they're on. She closes the door, and I can pretend to work, and I can watch the game live. We were meant to keep that a secret, Cindy, by the way. Then I have been known to be a real pain in the neck when the Europeans play the Americans, and we have a wonderful record of European Ryder Cup. The reason I put this slide up is that typically our 12 players from Europe are not quite as good on paper or individually as the 12 Tiger Woodses and Phil Mickelson. Some of you are nodding. But let me tell you, on the Sunday night of a Ryder Cup, I'm a very happy guy at my golf club because I just won most of the money. So why do I put this up? The reason is sports, and we've all played sports. Playing sports in a team, I think, translates really, really well to a high-performance business team. You need a coach, you need a captain, you need a left winger, you need a quarterback, apparently, a linebacker. But there's no good if the team is not working in unison together. So translating, in my position, English football through individuals playing as a team into winning high-performance teams, that's what we do. And that's what our customers see us do, and that's why we gain market share. The other thing, when I was sent off to Belgium and then off to San Francisco, that gave me new cultural experiences and tremendous challenge. And what we've been able to do in the last 12 years here is have an office in our customer's premise in Norway, in Brazil, in Houston, and in Singapore and Malaysia, and of course in the UK. We have an embedded engineer working with our customers, specifying, of course, our equipment, saving them time, saving them money. If you can ever achieve that, get one of your employees embedded with your customer, it's a total winning strategy. That's what we've been able to do. That's what I've led. Many of these folks on here, I personally mentor. I sent this young gentleman from Daytona Beach 12 years ago to Houston. He's then got promoted to run Asia, and he's coming back in the summer to run most of our oil and gas business. And he absolutely, Mr. Shadi Awad, considers me as his mentor. It's a very joyful, privileged position to be, and I encourage you to do that for the younger folk. Part of our strategy when I was at Raychem, we always learned absolutely hire the best person you can find. I have hired people when I didn't have a budget because I fell in love with that person. I knew he or she was going to do a great job. We're also privileged to have Cheryl Perot in the room, and she's a fantastic recruiter. So we hire the best, we go to the schools. When they come on board, we share the vision, They have lunch with me. Within 3 months, they know exactly what you know, where we're going as a company. And we encourage everybody to do their jobs and just do that little bit more and then reward them. Okay, so now once you have an effective business strategy, obviously, and all of us in this room, we have to balance the short term with the long term. So we have absolutely quarterly performance. We're a public company right now, so we have to hit our short-term goals, as many as you do, but you have to balance that with some of the longer-term strategies. And we took a big risk in Brazil, and I've got a slide coming up. So we made investments in Brazil from Daytona Beach. Very, very challenging. We've recently made a 3-year investment in Malaysia. And then in Europe, it's interesting, our number one competitor, they're British. And I know how to beat the British at their own game. And so we had very poor market share in Europe, and we decided to make long-term investments. And literally, over the last 12 years, we've grown from the number 2 to absolutely the number 1. But it's the balance between the short term and the long term. I think we do that quite well. Again, getting engineers embedded with the customer has really, really helped. Coaching and rewards. So I like to consider myself to be the coach. That's me on the left, and the left. That's the coach. But you know, at the end of the day, you've also got to be decisive and take decisions. And if some people aren't working out, you have to move on. And I think that's a very important, if you've got people in your organization that aren't meeting the strategy and the culture, then it's time to upgrade, do a little bit of coaching. Sometimes you have to move on. So this is a great story. I'd had a little bit of experience of doing business in Brazil about 20 years ago. So Petrobras, the state oil company, has a lot of reserves, and you need local content in country. You can't turn up as an American company and expect to do business in Brazil. So my customer, who is on the bottom left, said to me, how do we make a win-win partnership? And that's what I think we do really, really well. So what we said is, we'll put $500,000 of capital, which is that blue round thing on the left, into your facility, and in return, he'll give me 100% of his business. So we invested, couldn't really afford it, but we took the risk to put $500,000 of capital into a Brazilian plant, and in return, he gave me what will be over $20 million per year. So just think of that investment of putting $500,000 in. We now have my Brazilian soccer team down in Brazil. And just to let you know where the World Cup final will be, where England will be playing Brazil. I still haven't received my tickets yet, but we're working on that. So, but what a great story as we put this together to show that by making investment, by taking some risk, what the long-term reward and payback could possibly be. We had a fun opportunity several years ago. We were trying to get ready to sell the company, and we had an opportunity to meet Mr. Terry Bradshaw. I think you've heard of him. And he had a series on CNBC Squawk Box. I think CNBC Squawk Box is a great program. You can learn a lot. They interview a lot of CEOs and presidents and finance people. When we had an opportunity to go on Squawk Box, we just jumped at it. We couldn't afford it, but we got on, and he did a 30-second interview with our company. So think of little ODI in Ormond Beach ending up on Squawk Box. So my theme here is just aim as high as you can go. You never know where you might get to. And we all got up one morning, right, Gary, 7 a.m., and there we were on Squawk Box. So it was just a lot of fun. I have fun doing my job, by the way. That's the other thing that might be coming out. And none of you have left. We locked the doors, so you... I think one of my other themes is always synergy. Synergy can sometimes be an overused word. For those of you that don't know what it is, it's to put 2 and 2 together. It doesn't equal 4. It equals 5 or more. And what I've done and what we do, and I like to say we, is that we link and exploit our capabilities around the world. Those are ideas that our people have, our teams have, and we're the first company in the world to link technology that Teledyne invented and took on the space shuttle that's now going to work on the ocean floor. No one in the world had ever thought about doing that. That's what we do on a daily basis. That gives us tremendous capability, and we're going to be the number 1 in the marketplace. So when you think synergy, that's really what it is. How do you get your teams working better than those? You've got 12 people on a team. You don't want the answer being 12. You want the answer being 20 and 30 and 40 and driving behavior. So we had a lot of fun over the last weeks or two. Everybody had an iPhone who was traveling with me. We tried to get the best 12 shots of Mike traveling around the world. So some of them didn't quite make it because it's not after 10 p.m. But here we have. This is what I do. I go out around the world and we make relationships in 30 countries, whether we're in the bottom left, we're in the Petroleum Institute in Beijing University. Here we are in Japan, here we are in Bahrain, Indonesia, and on and on and on. That's what we do, and the customers really respect that the leaders of our company go out and visit them in their culture and take time to listen to them. Then we try and bring them back here to Daytona Beach. So my other theme is you have to keep reinventing. When you think you're number one, you better watch out because the number two and the number three are coming after you very, very strongly. Think about Apple, iPhone, and Samsung. My analogy is the airline. I'm privileged enough to fly on my favorite aircraft. It's an A380. My favorite airline is Singapore Airlines, and the reason is their safety record and their service. Their service is absolutely faultless. And so let's continue to innovate. Let's continue to be the best. And if you want examples, something like flying on Singapore Airlines is, the trouble is, when you fly to Singapore and you land back in New York and you have to get on a US carrier, it's really difficult. Here's the future. This is where we invest. So we hire the best, but with our HR department, we have an outstanding program involving local universities, local schools. I personally get involved in mentoring and attracting some of these kids. This is the future of our business. One day, I hope an intern, Mr. Shadi Awad or Heather Lavender, will be standing here talking about the next generation, our future of our company. But look at the partnerships that we have. And Scott and Cheryl are with us tonight, and really that's what they drive this message. They're saying the same things to the interns as I'm telling you tonight. I think the other strength that I've been able to bring is I spend a lot of time with my customers' executives. So not only do we sign agreements with FMC, not only do we ask Mr. John Gremp, who's the chairman of FMC Technologies, to come and spend 2 days here to open our facility. 2 days out of his life, he came to work in Daytona Beach and open the facility. And it worked so well that my dear friend, Mr. Bob Potter, the president of FMC Technologies, I got invited as the only guest to his retirement party at the Houstonian the other night. They kind of introduced me as part of their company. And I think that's the ultimate, that I was the only supplier, but most of the people in the room thought I worked for FMC. So it was a lot of fun. And as I'm wrapping up here, and you all know about our new technology center, this is the future. We drove this idea to have an R&D center here in Daytona Beach, just a stone's throw from well, it's actually a driver, a 3-wood, and a pitching wedge. And we brainstormed who should come and open the building. So I suggested, let's get my CEO. I think I can get him here. Then someone said, well, let's get Mr. Gremp, our CEO of our customer. And I think Mr. John Flynn, who's not with us tonight, stuck in Houston, said, let's go for the top. Let's invite the governor. And we were convinced we were going to get one of them. We got all three. We had an absolutely spectacular dinner at a hotel. And then the next morning, I think Frank and Jane and several of you came. And they networked together, and we got a lot of really good press. The whole thing here is it's R&D. We're investing in the future, and I'm hoping that some of the interns we're hiring now and sending around the world are going to experience this message. It's going to happen here too, in Daytona. Okay, this is my family. Family experience is incredibly important, right? It's just not about business. So here's my son Nicholas. His 14th birthday, we decided we'd have it at the Old Course in St. Andrews. So that was a memorable photo shot there. And I could still beat him when he was 14. And here's my wife, Kate, and my daughter, Sophie. She's graduating from George Washington. She's going to the UK, to the city of Bristol next year for a master's. So you can see it flows pretty quickly when they pick up the international culture. And then, for those of you that know me and my friends, this is my life. So we play a lot of golf in Scotland. We went to the Ryder Cup. Bottom in the middle is my son. He's grown up a little bit now. This is Phil Mickelson's coach, Rick Smith. So again, try and get the best for your kids. This is the real football, by the way. This is Chelsea versus Liverpool. There's a couple of really good games on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, in case you're not watching anything on Sunday night. And this is one of our greatest team photographs. This is a flight from Kuala Lumpur to Dubai on the A380, and we decided we'd take over the bar. The captain was up front, but this is one of our greatest team shots late one night, flying to Dubai. And my team members, you know, they really appreciate the drive, but this is the rewards they get as well. Okay, it's about results. So I know many of you are kind of interested in this. So in 12 years, we grew ODI to over $100 million. Last year, we achieved 20% growth, which is slightly above average. And we sold ODI to Teledyne in 2006. We wanted to be bigger. We wanted to go to the next level. So I personally formed Teledyne Oil and Gas. We did 3 acquisitions. We're going to do $300 million this year. And we've grown the employee base in the group from 185 to 1,200 employees. And I guarantee you, each one of those 1,200 employees knows exactly why they're here. They're excited about being here, the culture of innovation and customer satisfaction. This is where we're located. This is my quarterly travel schedule. So it's great fun, very challenging. But if you can get a team of 1,200 people working together, you can absolutely move mountains. So this is what we've done locally. This is what, at the VMA, you've watched us do this. We have 420 jobs here. We have a fantastic 95% retention, so not many people want to leave. That's another really good metric, right, of what's working, what's the culture. That very, very strong, good quality of jobs. 350 different international visitors came to Daytona Beach and stayed. Good news for the hotel business if anybody's opening one. Maybe the bank. These guys spend a lot of money. So it's pretty exciting, right? To have 350 people coming from outside USA, from Norway and from Brazil and Malaysia. Let me tell you, the Norwegians love it here in the winter. They absolutely love it here. For those of you that haven't seen our buildings, this is the 100 square foot facility we opened only 7 years ago. We thought it was way too big. Here's the entrance with the famous flags. The flags stand for which country you're visiting from today, or the top export countries. It's, again, very visible to the employees. The Japanese flag is flying today. I instantly know that Japan is in the building. It's just a great way to communicate to all the employees when they see someone walking around. No, he's not from Peru, he's from Japan. It's a very good cultural. And then here on the left, we opened the new building. And I know Tom is working with Jane, and I'm sure some of you would like to see the new facility. It's absolutely spectacular. Again, it has innovative features built into the building to drive innovation. And then, you know, to wrap it up, we did this, and my friend John Flynn and I did this the other night in a bar in Dallas. Volusia County is our home, but we're on the global map. This is, again, an innovative way to share with the employees a beautiful shirt every bike week. So we had the 2011, the 2012, the 2013. They're becoming collector's items. But it's amazing. You go around the world. I was in a taxi driver was taking me from New Hampshire to Boston Airport 2 weeks ago. He said, Teledyne, right? I said, Teledyne. He goes, I've got one of your bike shirts. True story. So I said, how did you get it? He said, well, my brother-in-law works for the company. But these have become collector items. And then to finish and to say thank you, you know, here's 2014 Bike Week shirts. So thank you for listening. It's fun to be here. Hopefully it's not the last of the series. And I'll absolutely take any questions that you have. Thank you very much.